My dad cut me off because I refused to respect my stepmom after she tried to erase every trace of my real mother from our lives. One day, I came home and all the photos were gone. My mom's necklace? Lost. Her favorite chair? Donated. Jolene, my dad's new wife, made it clear there was no room in that house for my mother's memory, or for me. And my stepsister, Melanie, the girl I grew up with, she didn't just go along with it. She embraced it. Called Jolene Mom. Took her side in every fight. And when I finally had enough and walked away from all of them, she didn't even try to stop me. 7 years. No contact. Not a call. Not a text. Nothing. Then one morning, a fancy envelope shows up in my mailbox. It's a wedding invitation. From Melanie. Just like that, I'm family again. She wrote a handwritten note that said, "I miss you. I really hope you'll come." I almost threw it away. But then I saw the name of the company running her wedding. It was mine. They had no idea I owned the business they'd hired. No clue that I'd built one of the top luxury event companies in the city from scratch, without a single ounce of help from them. So I went to the wedding, but not to celebrate. I went to remind them who they threw away and to show them exactly what happens when you treat someone like they're disposable. My name is Evan Marcus. I'm 32 years old, owner of Arden & Pine, a high-end events and design company based in Seattle. I specialize in making impossible weddings look effortless, transforming warehouses into palaces and backyards into dreamscapes. But before all that, I was just a kid standing in the hallway while my stepmother accidentally threw out my childhood. My mom passed away when I was 15. Cancer. Quick, brutal, and world-shattering. She was the kind of woman who remembered every birthday and made spaghetti from scratch on bad days. After the funeral, I thought maybe we'd grieve together. My dad, my stepsister Melanie, and I. Instead, we were handed a stranger. Jolene. My dad met her 6 months later and married her before the year was over. He said he needed help managing the house. What he really meant was that he needed someone who wouldn't talk about my mom. Jolene smiled a lot, especially when other people were around. But behind closed doors, she ran the house like a queen who had inherited a broken kingdom. And she hated reminders of the woman who came before her. That meant me. At first, it was subtle. Family photos disappearing. My mom's favorite coffee mug accidentally dropped. Her Christmas ornaments too old to hang. Then came the rules. I wasn't allowed to bring up my mom at the table. Her name made Jolene uncomfortable. Melanie stopped mentioning her too. She was only a couple years younger than me, but she adapted fast. She liked the new dynamic. Liked being the center of attention. Liked that Jolene bought her clothes and called her my girl. I tried to keep the peace. I was the one doing dishes, mowing the lawn, quietly moving through the house like a guest. When I graduated high school and asked my dad about college support, he told me that maybe it was time I learned how to stand on my own 2 feet. Meanwhile, Melanie was getting her own car for her 17th birthday and private SAT tutors. So I left. I packed a duffel bag, moved into a tiny studio, and started building something of my own. I started Arden & Pine with no funding, no mentor, no backup plan. Just an idea and the need to prove everyone wrong. I worked security gigs, flipped chairs after banquets, offered free DJ sets just to get into vendor lists. I slept 4 hours a night, pitched every wedding magazine in town, failed a dozen times, cried in my car more than once. But I kept going. By 26, I had a crew. By 29, I had 2 full-time coordinators, a growing reputation, and enough business to turn down nightmare clients. And by 32, I was the guy high-end hotels referred when someone wanted a miracle transformation with no drama. I did it all without a word from my father. Not even a congrats when I was interviewed on local TV. I figured that chapter of my life was closed. Until Melanie's wedding invitation arrived. It was cream-colored, heavy stock, elegant. Probably cost $5 per card. Inside was a note. Her handwriting was familiar. Curved letters, overly careful like she was still trying to impress teachers. Evan, I know it's been a long time, but I've missed you. I'd love for you to be there. It would mean a lot. Melanie. At first I laughed out loud. The sheer audacity of it. 7 years of silence. And now she wanted me to show up, suit up, smile for the camera, and pretend none of it happened? I dropped the card on my kitchen counter and walked away. Didn't touch it for 3 days. Then one night, while reviewing an event schedule with my operations manager, I saw the venue name listed for an upcoming job, the West Grove Estate. That was Melanie's venue. And then I saw the client code attached to it. Her wedding wasn't just on our calendar. It was being run by my company. I stared at the screen for a long time. At first, I thought it was a joke. Maybe she knew and would try to reach out in some backwards way. Maybe this was her version of a peace offering. But after checking the booking paperwork, I realized the contract came through one of our smaller partner branches, a company I had acquired 6 months earlier. She had no idea she'd hired me. She didn't know I was in charge of the flowers, the design, the lighting, the rentals, the timeline, everything. It was all mine. And that's when I knew I couldn't just throw the invitation away. No, I needed to go. I RSVP'd yes online with a simple message. Looking forward to it. Evan. No emojis. No warmth. Well, then guess how I felt. Over the next few days, I kept quiet. I didn't tell my team who the client was. I didn't change anything about the wedding plans. Not yet. I just watched the job unfold from a distance, silently approving details and tracking every update. But I couldn't help thinking about how they would react when they saw me. Did they think I'd sit quietly in the back, eat the chicken, and leave without a word? Did they expect me to come groveling, grateful, just to be acknowledged again? The old me might have done that, but I wasn't that kid anymore. The morning of the wedding, I put on the suit I wore when I signed my first $1 million deal. Navy blue, sharp lapels, tailored to my frame. Not flashy, but serious. I arrived early. I always do. The estate was stunning. Ivy-covered stone walls, a courtyard full of white roses, a ceremony arch that took my team 3 hours to build. Everything looked perfect, because I made it perfect. Not for them, for the client. That was my standard, even for people who didn't deserve it. As I walked into the main hall, no one noticed me at first. Staff were busy, guests hadn't arrived, and the bride was hidden away. Then I heard my name. Evan. I turned. It was Melanie. She stood in the doorway, still in hair and makeup, eyes wide like she'd seen a ghost. For a second, I didn't say anything. Then I smiled, polite, unreadable. Hey, I said, and the look on her face told me everything I needed to know. She didn't expect me to show up. She sure as hell didn't expect me to look like this. Evan. Melanie's voice cracked a little as she said it, like she wasn't sure I was real. She was in a silk robe, hair curled and pinned up, eyeliner half done. She looked nervous. Not wedding day nervous. Me nervous. I just nodded. Hey. She stepped closer, her eyes searching mine. I didn't think you'd actually come. I figured that was the point of the invitation. Her mouth opened like she wanted to say more, but nothing came out. Instead, she just gave a small, awkward smile. You look good. Thanks. I adjusted the cuff of my suit. I clean up all right. She let out a short laugh, then shifted on her feet. Listen, I know things between us got messy, but I meant what I wrote. I missed you. I raised an eyebrow. Did Jolene help you write that? Her smile faded instantly. And there it was. The truth. The moment I said her name, Melanie's whole posture changed. Like she'd been bracing for this conversation all morning. No, she said quietly. That was for me. We stood in silence for a beat too long. Then someone called her name from the other room, probably a stylist or bridesmaid, and she looked over her shoulder, torn between worlds. I have to go finish getting ready, she said, voice softer now. But I'm glad you came, Evan. I didn't reply. She waited a second, then left, and I stood there, alone, in a venue my team had built from the ground up for the same people who once told me I wasn't welcome at their table. The guests began to arrive soon after. Some I recognized from long ago, extended family, old neighbors, people who used to whisper poor Evan when my mom died, and then turned their backs when Jolene took over. No one greeted me like family. Some nodded politely. Others just walked by, exactly as I expected. I found my name on the seating chart. Table 14, the forgotten table, tucked in the far corner near the restrooms. Not quite outside, but definitely not in view of the head table or dance floor. It was the kind of placement you gave to distant cousins or coworkers you felt obligated to invite. I smiled. Classic Jolene. Melanie might have written the note, but Jolene clearly handled the seating chart. And then, as if on cue, she appeared. perfectly dressed in an ice blue gown that looked like it had its own PR team. Her hair was curled into flawless waves. Her jewelry sparkled like she'd rented a small galaxy. "Evan," she said, her voice oozing that fake civility she'd mastered long ago. "What a surprise." "Jolene," I nodded. "You're looking rehearsed." She smiled, but her eyes were cold. "I didn't think you'd come. You invited me." "Well, Melanie did," she corrected. "I thought she was being sentimental, but here you are. Here I am." She tilted her head. "Still running that little party business of yours?" "Still running it," I said. "Though these days it's less party business and more award-winning design firm with a wait list. But yes, still going." She smiled wider, clearly forcing it. "Good for you." And then she walked off before I could say anything else. Which was fine, because soon she'd be walking off in a whole different way. The ceremony was beautiful. My team doesn't miss. The flowers were pristine, the music perfectly timed, the chairs aligned to millimeter precision. Melanie looked stunning in her dress. Adam, the groom, seemed like a decent enough guy, though I'd never met him. As I watched them exchange vows, I felt nothing. No joy, no sadness, just distance. It felt like I was watching actors in a movie I didn't audition for. After the ceremony, we moved into the reception hall. Everything glowed. The chandeliers, the candles, the soft uplighting we'd spent 4 hours installing. People were buzzing, laughing, toasting. And then, as I approached table 14, my father appeared. He was already a few glasses deep. You could tell by the way he leaned into the conversation. Just a little too loud, just a little too close. "Well, look who it is," he said, slapping my shoulder like we were old pals. "The prodigal son returns." I forced a thin smile. "Dad." He reeked of whiskey and entitlement. "I told Melanie you probably wouldn't show," he said, chuckling. "But hey, maybe you're finally growing up." "Sure," I said. "That must be it." He leaned in closer. "Just try not to make a scene, all right? This day's not about you." And with that, he patted me on the back and walked off. I sat down at my table and took a deep breath. Okay, that was the last straw. I slipped away from the dining area and found the service hallway that led to the back of the kitchen. One of our staging coordinators, Sierra, was reviewing the dessert transition plan. "Hey," I said, pulling her aside. "I need you to get Sarah on the radio. Right now." Sierra blinked. "Everything okay? Just tell her it's time." A moment later, Sarah came through the door, already guessing what this was about. "You sure?" she asked. I nodded. They insulted me. Again, seating me in the back like an afterthought. Mocking the company. Treating me like some wedding crasher. Sarah crossed her arms. "All right, we got the contract. Termination clause is clear. Want us to pack slow or fast? Start with slow, then bring the hammer." "Got it." And just like that, the quiet undoing began. Our staff moved with silent precision. Florals started getting boxed. Uplights dimmed and unplugged one by one. Table runners rolled up between courses. At first, no one noticed. We were good at that. Then, about 20 minutes later, a few guests started whispering. Someone asked why the bar stopped serving. Another noticed the music paused. Then Jolene stood up, her face tightening. She looked across the room and saw Sarah speaking into her earpiece while directing 2 crew members toward the back. Jolene stormed across the floor, heels cracking like gunshots. "What is happening?" she hissed. "Why are you tearing things down?" Sarah, calm as ever, replied, "Services are being terminated. Hostile conduct toward management violates the signed agreement. Per Clause 4B, we're within full legal rights to withdraw." Jolene blinked. "Hostile? Who even is your management?" Sarah didn't say a word, just turned and pointed at me. I stepped forward from the edge of the room. Jolene's jaw dropped. "You," she said, her voice trembling with fury. "You're doing this?" "This is my company," I said. "You insulted me. You insulted my business. You disrespected everything I've built. And now, I'm leaving, and I'm taking everything I brought with me. You can't. I can. You signed a contract. You should have read the name on the bottom." By the time the reception reached peak chaos, half the room was empty. No lights, no music, no centerpieces. Just guests murmuring, Melanie crying quietly at her head table, and Jolene screaming into her phone. My staff packed their gear with the efficiency of a fire drill. No drama, no mess, just a clean exit, the way professionals do it. On my way out, I passed by the DJ, one of my freelancers, and gave him a nod. "Cut the music," I said. "We're done here." He smirked. With pleasure. Outside, I got in my car and just sat there. I should have felt triumphant, like I'd finally taken control after years of being silenced. But I didn't feel anything. Not yet. Then my phone buzzed. A string of texts. One from Jolene. "You petty, pathetic little boy. You just ruined your sister's wedding. Hope it was worth it." Another from my father. "You'll pay for this." But the one that hit the hardest was from Melanie. "I invited you to reconnect. I trusted you. I don't understand why you did this." I stared at her message. Because deep down, I believed her. And that's what hurt the most. I didn't sleep that night. After I left the venue, I parked outside my apartment and just sat there. Windows rolled up. Engine off. Phone buzzing every few minutes like it had something urgent to say. And in a way it did. Text after text. Call after call. Most were from Jolene. One long paragraph after another, accusing me of being emotionally unstable, narcissistic, jealous of Melanie's happiness. She said I had humiliated the family, destroyed a sacred day, and shamed myself publicly. She even demanded a refund, a full refund, for the wedding my company had already delivered, right up until she violated the contract. It would have been laughable if it didn't feel so damn familiar. That same twisted logic they always used. They hurt me, and somehow I was the one to blame. I didn't reply, but I didn't delete the messages either, because something told me I'd need them. The next morning, the first message I opened wasn't from Jolene. It was from Melanie. "I don't understand what just happened. You blindsided me. I thought you came to support me." That one stuck, because I could tell she wasn't angry. She was hurt, and that hit differently. I stared at her message for a long time. Thought about all the times we used to sneak down to the kitchen late at night as kids, steal cookie dough from the fridge, whisper about school drama. How we end up here? But just as I was starting to type a reply, another email came in. This one from a random Gmail address I didn't recognize. The subject line, "Contract violation and legal action, Melanie and Jolene Bishop wedding." I opened it and immediately smiled. It was from a legal representative, which I put in quotes because it was clearly written by someone who Googled how to threaten a lawsuit and slapped it into a Word doc. They were demanding a full refund, claiming emotional distress, reputational damage, and financial hardship due to abrupt service cancellation. The kicker? They were asking for an apology letter, signed, in writing. It was so absurd, I read it twice just to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. I forwarded it to my actual lawyer, Talia. She called me 20 minutes later, barely holding back laughter. "This is adorable," she said. "You want me to frame it or shred it?" "I want to respond," I said, "but I want to do it right." "Oh, we will," she said, "with receipts." And we had plenty of those. Security footage from the venue showing Jolene yelling at Sarah and berating 2 staff members. The signed service agreement, with the termination clause clearly highlighted. The multiple witnesses, my crew, who heard Jolene mock me to my face. Not to mention the text messages. Within 48 hours, Talia had a formal legal response drafted and sent. We weren't just rejecting their claims. We were making it clear. If they kept pushing, we'd countersue for defamation and breach of contract. Meanwhile, the online fallout had already begun. Someone at the wedding, I still don't know who, posted a video on TikTok of the venue being stripped mid-reception. You could see the candles being blown out, lights unplugged, linens being folded in the background while guests looked around confused. It got 40,000 views in 2 days. The caption? "When the wedding planner says I'm done," and means it. Comments poured in. Honestly iconic. I want to know the real tea. This is what happens when you disrespect your vendors. But they didn't read the contract. I didn't post anything. I didn't comment. I didn't defend myself. But the internet, it kind of did it for me. By the end of the week, I'd received 5 new business inquiries, 3 from guests who were at the wedding and were impressed with how professionally my staff exited, and 2 from total strangers who had just seen the video and wanted to work with us. It was surreal. Jolene tried to turn the entire night into a public humiliation. and all she did was give me free marketing. But it wasn't over. Not for her. She left a 1-star review on our company's Google page, claiming we abandoned a bride on her most important day and humiliated a family in front of hundreds of guests. Talia was on it within the hour. We filed a formal takedown notice. Attached the contract. Attached the footage. Attached everything. The review disappeared the next day. But Jolene wasn't done. She called Talia's office directly, screaming at the receptionist. Sent a second email with more threats. Started messaging some of my clients directly on LinkedIn, warning them about unprofessional conduct. And that's when we escalated. Talia sent a cease and desist, and added a note that the next message from Jolene would trigger a formal lawsuit. Silence followed. Finally, then came the call I didn't expect. Adam, Melanie's new husband. I almost didn't answer. His number was unfamiliar, but something told me to pick up. Hey, Evan, he said. His voice was cautious. This is Adam. I know we don't really know each other, but I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I was quiet. He went on. I didn't know all the stuff that happened between you and Melanie's family. I figured there was tension, but no one told me anything. After the wedding, I saw the contract. I saw the footage, and I get it now. I still didn't say anything. He sighed. Melanie's torn up about it. She really thought you came to support her. I finally spoke. I did. I just didn't come to support everyone else. I believe you, he said. And for what it's worth, I would have done the same thing. I wasn't sure what to say to that. So he said one more thing. She wants to talk to you, but she doesn't know how to reach out without it sounding like an apology and a favor. If you ever want to talk, she's ready. We ended the call there. No promises. No fake reconciliation. Just that. An open door. I sat with it for a few days. I didn't respond. Didn't reach out to Melanie. Not yet. But part of me, the part that remembered what it felt like to have a sister before all the noise, didn't hate the idea of hearing her out. Maybe. One day. In the meantime, I focused on my business. We were booked solid for the next 4 months. The team was energized. Clients were excited. And oddly enough, the drama made us stronger. No one talked about Melanie or Jolene anymore. But one day, Sarah came into my office with a package. No return address. Inside was a card. I watched what happened at that wedding. I was there, and I know what they did to you. Just wanted to say, you handled it with more class than anyone could have. If you're ever free, I'd love to grab coffee. Aunt Marcia, that stopped me cold. Aunt Marcia was my mom's sister. We hadn't spoken since I was 18. Not because we fought, but because Jolene had frozen her out too. I thought she was gone from my life forever. And now here she was. Not judging me. Not lecturing me. Just reaching out. I folded the card and held it for a long time. Maybe not everyone had forgotten who I was. Maybe not everyone picked Jolene. Maybe, just maybe, this whole thing hadn't been about revenge. Maybe it was about finally being seen. A week after the dust settled, I sat in my office staring at the card from Aunt Marcia. I kept it on my desk, tucked just behind my monitor where I could see it, not for inspiration exactly, but as a reminder I wasn't imagining things. Someone else had seen what happened. Someone who remembered the old version of my family, before Jolene took a match to it and smiled while it burned. I hadn't responded yet, but I was going to. Just not yet. 2 days later, Melanie texted. I'm in it. I want to talk. Not to fight. Not to defend anyone. Just to talk. I stared at it longer than I should have. My first instinct was to delete it. To let silence say everything I couldn't. But some part of me, the part that used to sneak in her room on Christmas Eve so we could guess what gifts were under the tree, wanted to understand how she could have let it get this bad. So I said yes. Okay. Neutral ground. Your call. She picked a quiet coffee shop on the west side of the city. Not fancy. Not curated. Just normal. A place you go when you want to talk and don't want to be seen doing it. I arrived 10 minutes early. Old habits. She walked in 2 minutes late. Also old habits. She looked nervous. I didn't bother pretending not to be. We sat across from each other for a minute without speaking. Just two adults with the weight of a decade on their backs, and nothing clever to say. Then she broke the silence. I know you don't owe me anything, she said. Not even this. I didn't argue. She took a breath. I didn't know they were going to treat you like that. At the wedding. The seating, the comments, the way Dad acted. I looked at her. You didn't think Jolene would insult me? No. I knew she might, she admitted. I just thought she'd have the sense to keep it together. I thought we could keep it together. I sipped my coffee, and when she didn't, she looked down. I froze. I always freeze around her. I didn't respond. She went on. She's been controlling my life since I was 12. I thought I was being loyal, but I was just scared, and I let her turn me into someone I don't even recognize. I raised an eyebrow. You called her mom. I know. You watched her erase mine. I know, she said again, her voice cracking. And I hate myself for it. There it was. Not an excuse. Not a redirect. Just the truth. I invited you because I thought maybe we could fix it, she said. I thought maybe if you saw me trying, you'd believe I meant it. But when everything fell apart, I didn't know what to do. And you walking out, it gutted me. I sat with that, then asked the only question that mattered. Why now? She was quiet for a long moment. Because I'm tired, she finally said. Tired of pretending that silence is easier than honesty. Tired of pretending I don't miss you. My jaw clenched. I wanted to stay angry, but I couldn't lie. I missed her too. The older, the one who climbed trees with me and made up dumb songs in the car. I didn't know if that person was still there, but I wanted to find out. I'm not coming back, I said gently. Not to Dad. Not to Jolene. That ship sailed. I'm not asking you to, she said. I'm trying to get off it myself. I looked at her carefully. If you're serious, then prove it. I will. We sat in silence again, but it was different this time. Not strained. Not angry. Just still. Eventually we stood up. No hugs. No dramatic farewells. But as she turned to leave, I said, Melanie? She stopped. I'm not doing half relationships anymore. If you want to be in my life, show up. For real. She nodded slowly. Deal. And then she left. It wasn't a perfect resolution, but it was the first honest moment we'd had in over a decade. And it was enough. For now. Over the next few months, life moved on. The wedding story faded from internet gossip. My business kept growing. In fact, I had to hire 3 more people just to handle the volume. Aunt Marcia and I finally met for dinner. She hugged me like I was 10 years old again and told me that my mom would be proud. I believed her, and it meant more than I expected. Jolene never tried to contact me again. Good. My dad, I heard through the grapevine that he blamed the woke generation for everything that went wrong. Classic. I didn't reach out. Didn't need to. Some things stay broken. And that's okay. A year after the wedding, Melanie called me on my birthday. No card. No gift. Just a call. And we talked. Like siblings. For the first time in a long time. People always ask me if I regret walking out of that wedding. Pulling the plug. Making it public. I don't. Not for a second. Because it wasn't about revenge. It was about respect. I didn't humiliate anyone. I just refused to let them keep humiliating me. And that's something I'll never apologize for. Ever. If you've ever had to walk away from people who claim to be family just to save your sanity, then you already know what I'm talking about. Drop a comment if this hit home for you. And don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear it.